Hey there. I was gonna wait a month before putting out the next book recommendations video, but since everyone's staying home, why not have something to read as well? Of course, I'll timestamp this, so if you want to jump to a particular book, then just take a look at the pinned comment. If you'd like more book recommendations, I've made a few more on my channel, and I'll put them in a playlist for ease of access. Let's get started. This time it'll be a little different. I'll recommend certain authors over certain books, since the topic for this video is unequal exchange, value transference, and other similar concepts. If you want a simple rundown of one form of unequal exchange, take a look at another video of mine on my channel titled How Rich Countries Rob the Poor, The Failure of Social Democracy. I'll put a link in the pinned comment for you. Now, this is a very wide and dynamic topic within Marxist theory that sadly is rarely discussed, even by many longtime Marxists. As a result of this diversity, not every theoretical addition to this field agrees with other formulations of other authors, and not everything meshes well with everything else. Much like the early days before Lenin's groundbreaking work on imperialism, there were many competing theories on the concept, with certain ideas being compatible between the concepts and others not as much. What is missing is a work like Lenin's imperialism, where a single, solidified, and theoretically sound formulation of the idea of unequal exchange is developed, and used to inform and educate current and future Marxists. Maybe you can be the person to write it. The first author I'll discuss is the one I read first, that being Emmanuel Arguri. His two most important works include Unequal Exchange, a study of the imperialism of trade, and the book he did along with the Danish Communist Working Group called Unequal Exchange and the Prospects of Socialism. In the first title I mentioned, Arguri develops the concept of unequal exchange with a significant amount of both theoretical innovation and tangible data to back his points. The book deals mostly with the concept of equilibrium prices and wages, both incredibly boring but very important topics. I won't sugarcoat this is an astoundingly boring book, one of the most boring I've read in a long time, but at the same time the fruit of its knowledge is ever sweeter because of that. If you want a more pleasant introduction to Arguri's concepts with the added bonus of political commentary, I recommend the book by the Communist Working Group. In that work, unequal exchange is explained in much simpler terms, along with how this affects class struggle and the general difference between core and peripheral countries. It has the capacity to be a very controversial and impactful book, if it weren't so obscure. The next author on this list is Zach Cope. He wrote two works that I want to highlight today, The Wealth of Some Nations and Divided World, Divided Class. The Wealth of Some Nations is such a fantastic work, and I plan to make a video on it sometime. The book is split into 4 parts. The first discusses value transfer overall and monopoly rent. The second is the most numbers heavy, I would say, and deals with the actual mechanics of value transfer with a lot of data to illustrate. This is the real meat of the book, in my opinion. The third deals with the concepts of labor aristocracy and makes a necessary distinction between the metropolitan and native labor aristocracies, while the last deals with the concept of social imperialism, which, although it can ruffle a few feathers, is still a fantastic and eye-opening section. The other work, Divided World, Divided Class, is a more general book, and hence I'd say a good introduction point for many Marxists into the concepts of labor stratification, as the subheader beautifully states. I won't discuss it much more than that. If there is a single book I'd recommend you read out of all of these, it's this one. Now, the third author is Samir Amin, the most familiar name, I'd say, out of the entire list. 2 books of his that I'd like to outline include The Law of Worldwide Value and Unequal Development. The Law of Worldwide Value might seem like a strange addition at first, since it primarily discusses, well, the law of value. What you may not realize, however, is that's only the foundation for the second section of the book, which discusses accumulation on a global scale, hence the title of the book. In this work, Amin discusses the concept of imperialist rent, which is an important addition to dependency theory. It's a short read and fairly straightforward, even the math is, more or less. The second work, simply called Unequal Development, is a hefty discussion on the development and continued existence of underdeveloped or peripheral countries. It primarily discusses historical instances of unequal development, systemic underdevelopment, and how this underdevelopment has endured to the present day. Again, this is a heavy 400-page scholarly work that can be crushingly boring at times. I can't in good faith recommend this without mentioning that. The sheer amount of data and new information in it makes it worth it, though. Samir Amin has other great works you can check out, like Eurocentrism and The Liberal Virus, which are easier reads and also equally enlightening. I think that's enough for this time. These definitely aren't the only authors, though. There's Barron, Sweezy, Wallerstein, Smith, Suwandi, and many others which have contributed to this field, but if I discussed all of them, we'd be here for well over an hour. I hope this is enough to keep your prolonged stay at home educational and interesting. If you like what I do, then please consider supporting me on Patreon, it really does help. I'd like to thank my patrons, so thank you to Calypso Soltis, Brandon Persuade, Judah Drury, At Democracy Expert, Alan Plum, Andy Haywood, Brandon Ruffing, Daniel Williams, Daryl McFarlane, Allegra Zahn, Eric G, Grammar Antifa, Granola Joe, Industrial Robot, Jedi Davion, John Bernstein, Jonathan Chavez, Khan, Nut Ring Lunde, Lewis Wolf, Liam Sapanan, Libertarian Stalinist, Manda, Mika Argopoulos, Ahmad Abdul-Jabbar, Ray Hogginson, Rankel Blancaster, Ring, Sasha Novaseta, Soviet Mystic, Sussy M, Ted Teddington Tedsville, The Turkish Trotskyist, Tristan Druyan, Zatalani, Zaran Arsin, Justin Perdomo, Eugene Simonovsky, Job, Parker Cushing, Malinov, Comrade Benito, August Nilsson, Nobody, Jovian Archiver, Pauline McDeesey, Michael R.W., Farrah Town, Scott Radburn, My Little Stalin, Comrade Pingu, and of course Charles. Thank you, Charles. I'll see you in the next one.